All right, welcome back. So this next video should be really review from last week. And the first thing is, remember, anything raised to the 0 power when a is not equal to 0 is equal to 1, right? So we talked about that last week. So we're going to apply that. And then the other thing we're going to apply are negative exponents. So whenever you have something a to the negative n, right, that's the same thing as 1 over a to the nth power. So we'll just do a couple of problems together and then that will be that. So if we have this where 2/3 is all raised to the 0 power, what we know is anything raised to the 0 power, even a fraction, is always just equal to 1. So that's the answer. Okay, now we have some negative exponents, and so you just remember you use the power rule for each thing, so it's going to be inside the parentheses. So even though if it's a fraction, 2 gets raised to the power of -1 and also 3. So 2 to the -1, 3 to the -1, and then remember whenever we have next exponents, we just have to flip it from the top part of the fraction to the bottom part, and then it becomes positive, right? So we have 2 to the -1, that's the same thing as 2 to the first power, but I'm not going to write that because I don't need to write 2 to the first. 2 to the first power is just the same thing as 2. Or maybe I'll write it 2 to the first power. Okay. And then here we have a negative exponent. It's on the bottom of the fraction, so to make it positive, it just needs to flip to the top of the fraction. And then we'll just write this one more time without the ones, and the answer is 3 over 2. Perfect. Okay, so here we have on C, the whole thing, -8 is, is to the negative power, right? And so if we want to change that to being a positive, you want to think about it as -8 raised to the -2 over 1. So to make that negative into a positive, I don't worry about there being a negative inside right now. All I want to focus is on getting rid of the negative in the exponent. And so we're going to flip that and make this whole thing go to the bottom. And now it's positive, it's just squared. So now at this point, I can just think, okay, -8 squared, that's -8 times -8, right? So a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So my answer is going to be positive, and then just 8 times 8 is 64. So that is the answer for that one, 1/64. Let's look at the next. So here we have 1 over 2 to the -3rd power. So this right here, that negative, means we need to make it positive. We're going to flip it to the top and end up with 2 to the 3rd power, which is just the same thing as 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Yes. So there we have it. And then on to E. So we have 220 x squared y to the -3rd power. And all of that is raised to the 0 power. And if anything is raised to the 0 power, we know that the answer is just 1. Perfect. Okay, so hopefully that's a good refresher for you from last week. I want to just look at a couple examples from worksheet number 4. So this is worksheet number 4. I want to just go ahead and do problems 13 and 18. We'll go for this big old doozy here. Okay, but let's start with 13. So 13, we have all of this and it's raised to the -3rd power. So it's just going to be a lot of power rule, right? So we're going to go 6 to the -3rd power, and then we're going to go x to the -2 times -3. So it's still that power rule. You still multiply. If they're negative, that's okay. And then we have y to the 3 times -3. So you're just doing the same thing. It's just now a negative, right? Okay, so from here, we're just going to simplify. So I think I'm going to say this is going to have to go on the bottom. So this is going to be 6 cubed. What do we have? We have -2 times -3. A negative times a negative is a positive. So it's going to be x, 2 times 3 is 6. And then we have y to the 3 times -3. A positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 3 is 9. So from here, we just need to simplify this number, and we can't have our answers with negative. So we have to make this exponent positive. So if you see, use the definitions for zero and negative exponents along with the product and quotient rules for exponents to simplify each expression, leaving all exponents positive. I'm going to highlight that. So your answer means that you're not done until all of those exponents are positive. They all have to have positive exponents. So here, are all the exponents positive? No, we have a negative exponent, so we have to get rid of it. So we can do that, no problem. So this one's positive, so we just leave it as it is, x to the 6. And then, okay, we got to figure out what 6 to the 3rd power. That's 6 times 6, which is 36, and then 36 times 6, I don't know. 36 times 6, 6 times 6 is 36, right? The 6 carry the 3. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 3 is 21. So 216. That stays on the bottom because that 3 is positive. And then this is negative, and so that needs to become positive, so we need to move it down to the bottom, and then it becomes positive. Whenever you have something like this, you want to make sure you write the number first and the variables following. So yes, this would be the correct answer, but let's go ahead and check it, right? So this is worksheet for number 13. So there's 1, 2, 3 things, so we want to make sure all of them are correct. So x to the 6, here's 13, we have x to the 6 over 216, 216 over y to the 9th, which is y to the 9th. So all 3 things are correct, so this answer is correct. I showed my work, I did a wonderful job, woohoo! Okay, on to the next, 18. We're going for the doozy, but we got this. Okay, so far nothing really to do up top, but on the bottom, all of this is in parentheses and it's all raised to the 2nd power. So we need to raise each individual thing to the 2nd power. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm just going to rewrite the stuff on top. I don't have very much space, so I'm just going to write it over here for right now. And then, okay, so the 4 is squared. We have x to the negative 2 times 2, power rule. We have y, we just write that negative 6, and the power rule just means you multiply, right? Multiply by whatever that exponent is. Okay, let's go ahead and simplify. So I'm going to write that 12 here, x to the 8th, y to the negative 7. What else do we have? 4 squared, so 4 times 4 is 16. And then we have negative 2 times 2, which would be x to the negative 4th, right? And then y to the negative 6 times 2, which is negative 12. Let me just, negative 4, negative 12. Okay, perfect. Now, what do we see? Well, there's a lot of negatives in the exponent, but I can do, okay, so there's a couple things, right? There's the numbers. I need to simplify 12 divided by 4, see if there's any common factors here. And then I have the same base here, x, and it's the quotient rule. And even though we have positive and negative numbers, we can still do the quotient rule. And it actually turns out being pretty easy. So we can do that, and then also we can do the quotient here with these negative numbers. And using negative numbers is okay. We can totally do it. We just do the same thing as we did before, and I will show you how to do that. So first thing, 12 over 16, what's the common factor? There's a 4, right? A 4 goes into 12 3 times, and a 4 goes into 16 4 times. So we end up with 3/4. And then we're going to do the quotient rule, right? And so remember, it's always this number on top, 8, and then subtracted by, and watch this, negative 4. Okay. And then we have y, and it's that number on top, negative 7, subtract negative 12. Okay, so what happens with these negatives? Well, they both become positive, right? So that ends up being 3/4 x to the 12th. And then y, these two negatives actually end up being positive, and we have negative 7 plus 12, which ends up being 5. And so that's it. That is our answer. So it ends up not really being that bad. It's okay to use the quotient rule when you have negative numbers. You don't have to make the numbers all exponents all positive and then do the quotient rule. You can just do the quotient rule right here. So That's pretty nice. Now, if this ended up being a -5, right, you'd have to change that negative into an exponent, into a positive by moving that y to the 5th down to the bottom, but we don't have that with this problem. I just wanted to make sure that if it ended up being a negative number, we'd have to do that additional step like we did back up here in this problem, right? We got our answer, we did all this work, we had y to the -9th. We can't leave any negative numbers in our answer, negative exponents, so we have to make sure that we make those negative exponents positive. Okay, so don't forget that part. Oh, we have to check it. Okay, so it's worksheet 4, problem 18. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Or, we can think about this as 3/4. So 18, we have 3/4, that's great. Then we have x to the 12th, x to the 12th, y to the 5th, y to the 5th. They're all perfect, so that is correct. Okay, that is it for this video. I will see you next time.